To achieve high-quality development, I believe that we must unswervingly handle the three aspects of reform: opening up, and innovation. 01. Unswervingly deepen reforms and clear the blockages in the domestic cycle. The reform involves many aspects, and the focus of the current reform is to build a unified market. This is a top priority for further releasing the potential of China's super-large single market and forming a powerful gravitational field for the world economy. We need to use reform thinking and pragmatic measures to eliminate the objectively existing institutional obstacles in the economic system. Obstruction, to expand new space in the market with new policies and new applications. From a realistic point of view, there are currently at least 8 institutional and fundamental problems that have formed a blockage point in the domestic market cycle. One is the negative effects of excessive competition among regions. The competition among regions and the competition for economic growth rate and scale are considered to be one of the internal driving forces for China's sustained and rapid economic growth. This is the positive effect of regional competition. However, regional competition also has negative effects, such as low-level redundant construction and local protection, which hinder the function of survival of the fittest in the market. In recent years, with the advancement of supply-side structural reforms, this phenomenon has decreased, but it still exists objectively within a certain range. Second, the urban-rural dual structure leads to market segmentation. This is reflected in the allocation of factors. There are still many restrictions on the flow of labor between urban and rural areas and between regions. The market entry mechanism for rural collectively owned construction land is still being explored. In terms of commodity services, the commodities circulating in rural areas in some places look similar to similar commodities in cities, but the quality standards are far worse, and some of them are even counterfeit brands and shoddy commodities. In terms of transportation and logistics, market facilities, and public services, the gap between urban and rural areas is relatively significant, which restricts the free flow of goods and factors, which in turn exacerbates the imbalance in development. Third, the color of administrative allocation of resources in some areas is still strong. In the energy sector, for example, oil and gas imports and exports are still highly regulated. China is a big energy importer and consumer, but it lacks a say in energy pricing, which is related to our highly regulatory policies. Another example is in the field of electricity. Last year, there was a large-scale power shortage, which was caused by the unbalanced allocation of on-grid electricity prices and coal prices. For this reason, the state has introduced an orderly liberalization of the on-grid electricity price for all coal-fired power generation, which is an important step in the reform of the electricity market. In addition, there are still some areas where the glass door and spring door phenomenon exists to varying degrees. Market access in some areas has different policies in different places. Enterprises can register in one place, but not in another, etc. Fourth, the logistics system is not smooth enough, and logistics costs remain high. In 2020, the total cost of social logistics in China will account for 14.7% of GDP, which is significantly higher than the global average, while the logistics cost of the United States is only 7% of GDP, Europe and Japan are 6%-7%, and even developing countries in Southeast Asia are only 10% or so. The high logistics cost has become a social consensus. There are 3 basic reasons. First, the proportion of railway traffic is low. At present, it only accounts for 9.5% of the total transportation volume, and roads and waterways account for 74.3% and 16.2% respectively. The proportion of U.S. railway transportation volume is 20%. Generally speaking, the cost of railway transportation is 1/3 of the cost of highways. If the proportion of railway transportation volume is increased to 15%-20%, it will effectively save logistics costs. Second, the road tolls are high. Some highways have been tolling for decades, and they are still tolling when it expires, while highways in developed countries will stop tolling once the BOT toll expires. Third, the efficiency of multimodal transportation is not high, and the seamless connection of infrastructure software and hardware has not yet been realized. Fifth, there are policy obstacles such as artificial travel restrictions and purchase restrictions in some industries. Over the past few years, significant progress has been made in tackling excess capacity, but many industries are still restricted by simple policy measures such as purchase restrictions, travel restrictions, and license restrictions, and some demands that should have been met have not been released. For example, in the automobile industry, according to the data of the World Bank, The number of cars per thousand people in 2019 is 837 in the United States, 589 in Germany, 591 in Japan, and even 433 in some Asian countries such as Malaysia, while only 173 in China. It should be said the market prospect is very broad. However, in some places, ordinary people obviously have a strong demand for car purchases, but they cannot buy cars because of the policy of restricting the number and license plates. At present, some urban office buildings have overcapacity, and there are almost no building-type three-dimensional parking garages. From the planning, some office buildings to be built are adjusted to three-dimensional parking garages, which not only stimulates consumption, but also balances the market. 6. The lack of some technical standards suppresses the demand. My country is the country with the largest production capacity of iron and steel equipment production lines in the world today, but the utilization rate of production capacity is low. At the same time, my country is also a country with insufficient global steel reserves and a low proportion of circular economy for scrap steel making. At present, my country's steel structure output only accounts for about 7 to 8% of my country's steel output, while the proportion of countries, regions, such as Europe and the United States is about 40%. Increasing the proportion of steel structures in various buildings will significantly expand the demand for steel, and there will be contribute to the consumption of these advanced excess capacity. The current reinforced concrete houses generally have a service life of 40 to 50 years, and the service life of steel structure houses can be as long as more than 100 years. Improving the steel standards for construction and promoting the use of steel structures can not only make full use of my country's existing steel production capacity, but also greatly improving the quality of housing and prolonging the life of housing can also form a circular economy in the long run of steel scrap and steel making, and it is also conducive to earthquake resistance and disaster reduction, etc., serving multiple purposes. 7th, the market-oriented reform of factors needs to be accelerated. Due to various reasons, the market of factors of production such as land, labor, capital, and technology has problems such as excessive administrative intervention, poor market operation, and low efficiency of resource allocation in the operation process. Measures currently being implemented such as exploring the establishment of a national construction land and cross-regional transaction mechanism for supplementing cultivated land indicators and relaxing restrictions on urban settlements except for some megacities, and piloting the household registration system based on the place of habitual residence are conducive to improving factors. Mobility is conducive to guiding various elements to gather together in advanced productive forces. The market-oriented reform of relevant factors urgently needs to be stepped up in accordance with the policies and measures of the central government. 8th, the internal and external circulation of state-owned capital needs to be opened up. In 2020, the total assets of state-owned enterprises across the country will be 268.5 trillion yuan, and the state-owned capital equity will be 76 trillion yuan. 99% of the equity capital is industrial and commercial capital, and the return on total capital and total factor productivity are not high. In accordance with the requirements of the third plenary session of the 18th CPC Central Committee that the reform of state-owned enterprises should change from asset management to capital management, establish a group of capital investment and operation companies, and promote the development of mixed ownership, how to transfer about 10 trillion in equity assets from existing state-owned capital to form a number of state-owned capital operation companies, let these operating companies focus on alternative investment and equity investment like Singapore Temasek or equity funds, and decide whether to advance or retreat according to the benefits of the invested companies. This not only revitalizes state-owned capital, but also promotes mixed ownership. The smooth circulation of state-owned capital in the national economy expands the influence, drive, and control of state-owned capital in the national economy. The Party Central Committee has already made arrangements to promote reforms in the above 8 aspects, from the decision of the third plenary session of the 18th Central Committee to the opinions on building a more complete system and mechanism for the market-oriented allocation of factors issued in March 2020, and then the opinions on accelerating the improvement of the socialist market economic system in the new era issued in May 2020, and the opinions on accelerating the construction of a national unified large market issued in March 2022. These heavyweight documents have raised many. The reforms of type, wealth accumulation, and resource optimization are not only targeted and forward-looking, but also have strong strategic significance. In the context of the current economic growth and fiscal revenue being greatly frustrated by the epidemic, it is not only in line with economic and social reality to implement the spirit of the above-mentioned documents and earnestly promote a number of reforms that cost little or no money but can bring huge dividends. It is also conducive to the resumption of work and production, stimulating the vitality of enterprises, and helping the economic cycle. 02. Unswervingly expand opening up, make full use of RCEP opening up dividends. Opening up also involves all aspects. The current focus of China's opening up is the implementation of RCEP. RCEP will bring development opportunities in 5 aspects for China's industrial development. First, the implementation of zero tariffs on most commodities will help expand the export of superior products. Second, the entry threshold for trade in services has been lowered, providing good opportunities for China to develop productive service industries such as digital trade, intellectual property services, R&D, and design services, and cross-border logistics, as well as daily service industries such as life services, cultural services, and tourism services. Conditions of. The third is the in-depth application of the cumulative rules of origin, which is conducive to deepening the industrial division of labor in the region and optimizing the industrial layout. Fourth, it is conducive to the introduction of high-quality products and accelerates the formation of industrial chain clusters with international competitiveness. Fifth, it is conducive to high-quality going out and promoting high-level joint construction of the Belt and Road. However, the generation of these dividends and benefits requires localities and departments to make good use and implement them. It is recommended that localities deepen the promotion and application of RCEP policies from the following aspects. The first is to promote the accelerated implementation of RCEP rules at the policy and institutional level. It is necessary to systematically sort out local laws and regulations, implement RCEP's mandatory obligations in terms of business environment improvement, service trade, and investment sector opening, and at the same time focus on building a market-oriented, law-based, internationalized business environment. For those places that are not covered by the Pilot Free Trade Zone, the signing of RCEP is equivalent to enjoying the policies of the Pilot Free Trade Zone, so don't wait for it, but take the initiative to connect and adapt. Those approved free trade pilot zones should have higher benchmarking requirements on this basis, and accelerate the improvement of the policy and institutional system focusing on trade freedom, investment freedom, capital freedom, transportation freedom, and personnel freedom of employment. The second is to support the expansion of trade in goods. Encourage enterprises to strengthen the application of RCEP accumulation rules of origin, and support social and professional institutions to provide customized services for key enterprises with RCEP accumulation rules of origin, including country-specific tariff planning, targeting products with high tax differences, incorporating rules of origin into production management, and developing imports. Investigate the status of non-entitlement of tariff preferences, provide suggestions on the use of switching agreements, etc. Encourage enterprises to dig deep into the import demand for RCEP countries, guide enterprises to give priority to purchasing products from RCEP countries when the products are of the same quality and price, and develop new products and develop new markets around the consumption characteristics of RCEP countries. Promote the facilitation of customs clearance of goods, improve the customs clearance model, simplify product pre-examination procedures, and cultivate approved exporters under the RCEP rules. The third is to expand the opening up of the service industry and support the development of service trade. For education and training, healthcare, logistics distribution, cultural creativity, scientific research innovation, intellectual property services, for banking, securities, insurance, industrial chain finance and other financial industries, for cross-border logistics distribution, after-sales service, and other productive services and various the service trade that accompanies the trade in similar import and export goods, further relaxes the entry threshold, and implements an all-round, wide, ranging, and multi-channel opening up of the service industry. It is necessary to accelerate the development of banking, securities, insurance, factoring, leasing, financial settlement, and cross-border bond issuance financing, investment, mergers, and acquisitions, and centralized operation of cross-border funds that accompany trade in goods. At the same time, further optimize the logistics system with RCEP members, and build public service platform systems such as RCEP-oriented service trade information platforms, technical service platforms, training service platforms, and financing service platforms. Implement the requirements of simplified tax system and low tax rate in the Pilot Free Trade Zone, attracting a large number of high-end production service enterprises and professionals with strong professionalism and good profits. The fourth is to support the development of offshore trade, entrepôt trade, digital trade, etc. Support enterprises to apply RCEP rules to carry out service outsourcing, and develop new service trades such as offshore trade, entrepôt trade, digital trade, and cross-border e-commerce. For reasonable offshore transshipment business, the customs can conduct separate audits of the trade contract bills, trade settlement and settlement tax bills, and logistics warehouse bills in accordance with international practice. Driven by these policies, we will accelerate the development of bonded exhibition import trade, entrepôt trade, offshore trade, cross-border e-commerce trade, digital trade, service trade, etc. On the premise of ensuring national security, relax the entry barriers in the fields of big data, cloud computing, artificial intelligence and their data processing centers, and reduce the scope of restrictions. Fifth, support two-way investment. In terms of bringing in, focus on attracting investment in the entire industry chain, focus on attracting multinational companies that have mastered the three chains, and at the same time make good use of the open policy to bring in their upstream and downstream together, and strive to create a highly agglomerated, an industrial chain cluster with close coordination between upstream and downstream and an intensive and efficient supply chain. At the same time, attention should also be paid to the introduction of well-known universities, R&D institutions, and Fortune 500 multinational companies from RCEP countries to establish independent R&D institutions in China. In terms of going out, on the one hand, we must make good use of the RCEP accumulation rules of origin to optimize the regional industrial layout. While promoting the advantageous production capacity to go out, we should make full use of preferential tax policies and encourage enterprises to keep the value chain settlement link in the country. On the other hand, it is necessary to vigorously support Chinese enterprises to invest in RCEP member countries, acquire technological innovation enterprises, well-known brands, and high-quality mineral resource projects. The above 5 aspects can be implemented by various localities. If they are done well, they can also generate trillions of dividends. The implementation should be accelerated. I noticed that recently, the United States and more than a dozen countries have come up with an Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, with the intention of promoting the deSinicization of the industrial and supply chains. Among the 14 member states of IPEF, except the United States, India, and Fiji, the other 11 countries are all members of RCEP, and China is precisely the largest trading partner of these 11 countries. As long as we unswervingly expand opening up, conscientiously implement and make good use of RCEP's opening rules and policies, the industrial and supply chain links between China and other RCEP countries will only become closer. On September 16 last year, China formally applied to join CPTPP. On October 30, President Xi Jinping announced his decision to apply to join DEN. It can be said that China is moving towards a wider, deeper, and higher level of opening up, and a new wave of opening up to force reform and promote development is coming. Any attempt to decouple China from the world and desinicize its industrial and supply chains will fail. 03. Unswervingly strengthen innovation and improve total factor productivity. Innovation also involves multiple aspects, and the current focus of innovation should be on the improvement of total factor productivity. The economic growth in the past 40 years has largely been driven by the input of capital and labor. But at present, the debt ratio of the Chinese government and enterprises is already very high. Whether it is old city renovation, infrastructure, industrial investment, real estate investment, and large-scale capital investment through large-scale borrowing, the effect on economic growth has weakened. In terms of labor force, the urbanization rate has reached the ceiling, the aging population is deepening, and the labor supply has also declined. Note that although China's total GDP has reached 76% of that of the United States, our total factor productivity is only about 40% of that of the United States. Compared with other developed countries such as Japan and Germany, China's total factor productivity is only 63% of Japan's and about 44% of Germany's. Moreover, it is worth noting that since 2008, the growth rate of China's total factor productivity has tended to decline. Therefore, to maintain the sustained, stable and healthy growth of China's economy, it is necessary to make every effort to increase total factor productivity. In addition to unswervingly deepening reform, expanding opening up, and improving the efficiency of resource element allocation in the domestic and international dual cycle, we must also unswervingly strengthen innovation, we must not only pay attention to technological innovation, but also pay attention to institutional mechanism innovation and industrial organization innovation. We need new iterative upgrades at the level of industrial organizations such as industrial chains, supply chains, and innovation chains. Only with a higher quality industrial system can we take the initiative in the new round of technological revolution and industrial transformation, and China can be the largest single market. The advantages of mutual promotion of internal and external circulation. We should focus on the following three aspects. First, continue to increase investment in basic research. This is the 0 to 1 stage of innovation, which is necessary to realize original innovation, basic innovation, and technological innovation out of thin air. We have a big shortcoming in this regard. Although my country's total social research and development investment has accounted for 2.44% of GDP, ranking second in the world in total, the investment is relatively scattered. Some basic research fields that require long-term investment, such as nuclear high-tech, the proportion of investment in the field of basic support to the total R&D expenditure has hovered at 5 to 6% for a long time, which is far behind the 15%-20% of the world's major innovative countries. The outline of the 14th Five-Year Plan has proposed that this ratio should be increased to 8% at the end of the 14th Five-Year Plan. We expect that, on this basis, the proportion of basic research investment in R&D funding will increase to about 15% in another 10 years, and will continue to increase gradually in the future. The second is to cultivate specialized, special and new small and medium-sized enterprises. Entering a new stage of development, China's small and medium-sized enterprises cannot stay in the miscellaneous, scattered, and small stage, and should focus on cultivating the following three types of specialized, special and new small and medium-sized enterprises. The first category is enterprises that play a role in the industrial chain. They have outstanding main businesses, strong competitiveness, and good growth in the fields of core basic parts and components, key basic materials, advanced basic technology, and industrial technology foundation. This is the key to forming a more resilient and safer industrial system in my country and building a strong manufacturing country. The second category is the invisible champions of various industries, who focus on a certain subdivided field for a long time, achieve global leadership in production technology or technology, rank in the forefront of the world in market share, play a core guiding role in the industry, and often master a certain the pricing power of an industry controls 30% or even 40% of the output value of the entire industry chain, affecting the profit level of the entire industry. The third category is enterprises specialized in producer services. Most of the leading international manufacturing companies have transformed into service-oriented manufacturing. At present, service revenue has accounted for 1/4 of the total revenue of the world's top 500 manufacturing companies. With the servitization, greening, clustering and intelligentization of China's manufacturing industry, a large number of professionals are required to engage in R&D and design, warehousing and logistics, supply chain finance, information technology, energy conservation and environmental protection services, inspection and certification, business consulting, e-commerce, manpower resources, etc. for SMEs. The third is to cultivate China's own ecologically led chain owner enterprises. These enterprises often organize global value chains based on intellectual property rights and have evolved into special business organizations. At present, such enterprises have appeared in some fields in China, and we should cherish them even more. One is to use the big Chinese market to provide strong support for such companies to promote their applications and iterate their technologies. The second is to encourage such enterprises to establish a global vision, root in global genes, and help such enterprises develop intellectual property rights and industry standards globally by building platforms for international exchanges, project cooperation, and market development. The third is to strengthen the protection of intellectual property rights. The common feature of ecologically led chain-head enterprises is to form independent intellectual property rights on the underlying technology. Supporting the development and growth of such enterprises and strengthening their intellectual property protection is to effectively protect their competitiveness from the root, and this aspect needs to be continuously strengthened.